like I said, this is kind of about giving you guys a setup and some context and kind of a, yeah, the world is so fast moving that it's really hard to use existing mental models to apply to our universe. And because of that, yeah, it is kind of this matrix is the only way I can describe it. It's a world of lingo and, yeah, it's a abstraction. Yeah, it's a, if you've ever talked to someone who's ever raised capital, who here are like entrepreneurs or like, let me get a sense of the room, like entrepreneurs, engineers, entrepreneurs first. Any of us here? Okay, a couple of us. All right, engineers, a couple of us. Artists. Okay, all right. Yeah, and I'll get to the whatever else. I'll probably run down a much larger list than that. So what I'm going to try and do is give you an opportunity to basically kind of open your eyes, because it's a world that has moved so fast that the rules haven't really been established. So there are no rules. And that's a very important thing to understand. In a world without rules, the world's an unfair one. That's also important to understand. That fairness is not intrinsic in a space where there are no definitions. So when things are so new and like it's the Wild West. And in any Wild West, the rules are left to those who define them. It is said that with respect to new territories or new markets, pioneers get the arrows and settlers get the land. Which is kind of a fun thing to say to entrepreneurs. They're like, "Oh man, that sucks." You know, it's because you kind of get chewed up by the machine, and it's the folks that come in that next sweep because, well, you know, there are no rules. You know, I certainly lived that in the world of poker. At the time that we built this, we were up and coming, young, entrepreneurial, highly technical, mathematically driven individuals. And I will definitely need that later. Yes, that's good. So we were definitely mathematically driven individuals. And that is what I thought would be our advantage, because the theory is that understanding something really well and being able to serve it really well. I played cards in college, a lot of poker in college. I had the unique privilege of playing at UCLA, where it's a really famous card game. And there have been a number of World Series championship players who've graduated from either the mathematics or the computer science department. And in my formative years, I was allowed to play with them. So it was just a really fun, wild ride to play with a guy on a Thursday night and 2 months later see that human take down $8 million. You know, like, it's unreal. And so it's also unreal to be like, I put a beat down on him. No, but you know, yeah, like I said, in the creation of a new environment, you can kind of get chewed up by the machine. So no rules, they're left to be defined. But to go back to that sentence where pioneers getting the arrows and settlers get the land, I will say this. Pioneers live like pioneers, and settlers have to settle. So you know, there's a unique balance between those two things. It is like life is a really fun balance. And I will say the adventure that was had was unreal, like genuinely almost unreal. Like to build a company that's that successful, to have it continue to grow every day, like it must be what it's like to, you know, be Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, because he has never had a down day. Like, I want you to think about that. Since 2007, every day has been up and to the right. I'll tell you, there's been one day where a graph was level at Facebook. They have a dashboard internally. And so inside, it's the KPIs that they use to monitor their performance. And every day, Facebook has a bigger number than the day before. Every day. With the exception of one day. And it was the day that Instagram, before they were acquired by Facebook, launched their Android client. It's the first day in the history of Facebook that the traffic graph was level with respect to Android photo uploads. Every day there's more Android photo uploads, more Android photo uploads, more Android photo uploads. And then these shits from Southern California with their fun little filter app, they broke someone else's model. And what happens? $1 billion moves in one direction. Just like that. Why? Because the last thing you want is someone to eat your lunch. That's reality. So when people go like, how the fuck did, Instagram justify that kind of valuation? It's because they were a threat to Facebook. And this is what I mean by the second level hustle. It has nothing to do with value. It has everything to do with someone having a fiefdom and being like, I really like the feeling of coming in every day and winning. And when I have a metric shit ton of money, I can make sure that I win every day. And that's reality. So it's a funny story too. And mind-blowing. So hey, I'm going to tell you guys how the sausage is made. That is a slurry of protein. Anyone here want to guess what that is? You trying to guess? Strawberry ice cream, huh? Pink slime. Bone. It's not sausage at all. That is the stuff that chicken nuggets are made of. So that's a chicken nugget. But that is also chicken nuggets too, which is, that is what chicken nuggets are made of. They kind of grind and press and slash and then they form it into one of those things. Anyway. What I mean to say is packaging is everything. Okay? Because no one here would have 2 tablespoons of that pink slurry. But there are plenty of people who, like, with a little bit of trees have had a whole half box, or full box really, included, of those awful chicken nuggets. So what's really important is to understand how the finished, packaged, wrapped up thing is very different than its source, and that disconnection is incredibly huge. So it's really to understand that, like, what you buy, what is packaged, and what is meant for consumption, whether it be a story or news or like a tech startup's exit, there's a lot more complexity to that story than what is reported, and that's just reality. So this is the attempt to get people to look deeper into the reasons as to why anything is happening, because there's truth that can be found if you bother to kind of really press and look for it. So yeah, packaging, everything. So let's talk about packaging. Now here we have 3 incredibly popular iPhone games. They've just wrecked the industry, and they're awesome. And this is the current winner. This is the winners of before. There'll be new winners in the future. But it's really important to talk about, like, what they all have in common, besides being on the iPhone, which is like one of those things. And I've thought a lot about this because I'm a mathematician and a statistician and a guy who does a lot of probability theory. So I try and figure out, like, the causational effects of things, like how things become what they are. So one of the interesting things about Candy Crush, Angry Birds, and Touch Grind, and Labyrinth, there's a great quiz game that's here that's really played well. Anyway, what I'll go into telling you guys is that they were all #1 in the Scandinavian app stores first. Like, that is the signal. That is the first signal that creates these other signals. And it's really important to understand that if there's a repeatability to something, it's important to kind of deconstruct what that repeatability is. So they were all #1 in the Scandinavian app stores first. Now, let's ask why. Let's talk about the mathematic advantage. Folks in well-developed countries have more disposable income. That's a reality. Because I'm not arguing, look, I'm not going to tell, there's no magic to this, there's math. I'm just going to give you guys raw math when it intersects with human behavior, and then outcomes occur. And that's very important that's a really cool key thing to study. So higher amounts of disposable income. So $1 is no big deal, like a buck, 7 kroners, 10 kroners, nothing, right? Highly connected populace. Everyone has a smartphone, okay? What's really interesting is while the games were localized, they were available in like regional languages. They were ready for like massive distribution. But now I actually want to kind of go into the really interesting thing, which is regional managers. Now, that's the key that actually makes something successful. Because if you're an Apple employee who manages a region of an app store, what's really interesting is that every region has segregated download numbers. But each regional manager meets on a continual basis to talk about which apps are climbing in which markets. What's really interesting is that apps that end up on the front page of the global app store were the apps that ended up on the front page of the regional app stores for each of those apps. Really big, very big insight. Huge, crazy big, like giant signal. Like that is the signal. That you must actually win in the smallest market. Okay? It's much easier to get 7 million Scandinavian downloads, and that creates signal, than it is to get 70 million in the United States. Interestingly enough, though, you're at the top of the regional manager's list when you go in your like weekly call and report. So top is what matters. Relative top is what matters. Again, reality isn't real. Reality is relative. That's also very important. Reality is relative. So these regional managers would get together on a conference call, and they would talk about which apps were getting traction. And interestingly enough, when they'd win in the Scandinavian App Store, they would probably win elsewhere. So they get tested in various markets, and then the games are good, okay? The games are good. I've got all of them. Even with an advantage, you still have to deliver an amazing, amazing piece of awesome, right? You still have to do that. But you don't have to be original. Like, I've played Candy Crush before. I played it when it was called Bejeweled. Yeah, that's, but interestingly enough, a 7-year-old has no fucking clue who PopCap is. I don't know. They aren't the 30-year-old that played it on a Palm, It's a different market. And because it's a different market, it's, again, reality is relative. And so it's new to someone else, How many people here look at Reddit? You guys, anyone here Redditors? I am. I'll be for 2 of you because I probably watch it too much. The number of things that are on the front page over and over and over again. Like it happens. Like, fuck, I've seen this before 6 months ago. But what's really interesting is that Reddit grows like 13% month over month based on internet growth and traffic. So it doesn't matter if it's old to me. It's new to a shit ton of other people. And that's why it's on the front page. Again, relativity is important. New markets create new opportunities. New users have new experiences, and those new experiences are fresh to them. Who cares if this is the first time you've ever seen Candy? I don't care that you knew that it was Bejeweled or Bejeweled 2 or Bejeweled Black or Bejeweled any of the other ones. It doesn't matter. This is Candy Crush, and it's different. Of course it's different. You have lives. It costs more money to play. But and kudos to King for doing it. Like it's there's nothing wrong with that. Like there's nothing wrong with winning at all. Like how American is that? Guys, there's nothing wrong with winning. No, but I mean it. Like new markets are made every day, and there's churn within existing markets, and so it's really important to understand that there is no fixed bit of constant. There's no. It's a moving thing. We're in a big ass living organism. This organism is growing all the time. So your old ideas or your old content or your old models or your old like they just. I'm not saying they don't apply. But they are constantly under, or you should constantly reevaluate them. That's what I'm going to say. All right. So, let's do some acronyms. This is actually the, like, these are like, if you guys are in the software world, if you guys do things that like all of those apps that I just showed, or any app that has consumer facing downloads, like boom, 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 boom. These are it. That's it. Like it all is down to this. It's this, and that's it. The game is secondary to these 5 things, or 6 things. The app is secondary to these 6 things. And I can tell you this because I've been a venture capitalist, and I've invested other people's money based on just doing this math. This math only. Like, I don't even care what the content is. Content doesn't matter at all. I don't even care if, like, I don't have to understand it. It doesn't have to appeal to me. It doesn't have to make me happy. It doesn't have to make me excited. I don't even have to care. Like, if the total available market is large enough, and the segmented market of whoever is coming in and saying, hey, I can go out and get like 40% of these guys or gals, or, you know, like, let me tell you what, to rewind a little bit. Has anyone here ever raised money, like, from an outside investor? Okay, so this one, like, you'll know that investors are investors because they want a return on investment. They're not in it because they like you. They're not in it because they want to see your dreams become realities. Again. And that's a thing. Like, they are here to return on their investment or make a multiple of their investment. And that's a really, I used to have this, before I was in the industry and before I had actually raised capital, that, you know, you come up with a great idea. You go home, you build it, and then they'll come, and then you'll make money. That is the most back-assward way of doing anything I've ever heard of in my entire life. First of all, you don't know that anyone cares about whatever it is you're doing. You don't know that. If you have no, like, how many people would buy your widget? I don't know, there's people out there. Like, my mom would. Well, yeah, your mom probably would because she loves you. My mom bought my widgets too. My mom thought my macaroni cards were awesome. But they were macaroni cards and kind of shittily constructed. What matters is that, like, someone else, that I have a reasonable belief that your widgets will be liked by a large enough group of people, that your sales pitch will be good enough, that your cost for production is low enough, and that your profit margin is high enough, so that when I put a dollar or a kroner or a euro into the front end of this machine, $3.85 come out of the back. And I just need to keep skip loading dollars into the front of the machine, or kroners into the front of the machine, or like euros into the front of the machine. Whatever that is, I don't even care. Like, I skip load it in, $3, $4, $7, $2, $2, I don't give a shit, says the investor. 200% is not enough. That's also weird. No doubling your money. Like, 300% at least, or don't even try. Why? Because if you fuck up half the time, there's no wiggle room for any profit. Again, math. It's crazy. But it's all math, because we live in a math-controlled universe. Like, we're on a round rock that rotates at a set interval around a round burning thing that rotates on a set interval in a galaxy that rotates and expands at a constant. Like, there's no, like, well, you know, the Earth is moving faster today. You know, that's not happening. You know, like, these mathematic constants are defined. And interestingly enough, when you're in the realm of investment or software and all these, they're just constants. They're just mathematic formulas. And I have, in my own professional roles, I've been a content creator and an idea creator and an entrepreneur. And I've also been on the other side as an investor, not personally, putting other people's money at risk. But to explain that, which is really, really interesting, I'm a VC. Okay, we'll say that. I'm a VC. Now, let's say I put in some of my own money. I've had a good technology exit. Okay, let's say I've had a good technology exit. Sold the company for $50 million. I decide, you know what I'm going to do? Take 10% of that and put it in play. $5 million is not enough to start a fund. It's just not enough. But it is enough to be the snowball at the top of the mountain that you can kick down and get a bunch of other people involved. Because it's like, look, I'm willing to put my own out there to the tune of $5 million. Who's with me? So you get a podiatrist or a doctor who puts in 100 grand. You get a lawyer who puts in $1 million. You get a movie producer who will put in $5 million. You know, you'll get a hedge fund who's like, oh, you guys have already got like $6 million. You got another. Okay, you know what? We'll match that because we got a whole bunch. You know, and then now you've got like 30 million. Okay, now 30 million is a tiny fund, but you can totally work with that. It's workable. Workable. You can invest in probably 100 companies. That's probably what you can pull off with 30 million, doing $200,000 with some follow-ons, you know. That's kind of the tranches. So we'll do the seed rounds for all of those. That's one fund. It's one fund. Now, most VCs have like somewhere between 5 and 30 funds. And they range from like 30 million to hundreds of millions, you know. But the thing is that they all went around to these other folks and said, hey, I'm going to give you 17, 18, 20% on your money. So these VCs are also salespeople. They too have said, hey, I'm putting my own at risk with the intention of making 20% year over year. I don't know. I just got a picker, I'm guessing. And my job is to go ahead and return on this investment. Because the folks in today's world, especially here in Europe, capital markets being what they are, if money is not moving, it's in negative interest rate here now. That is to say, you pay a bank to keep your money. They don't pay you. You pay a bank to keep your money. So money must be in movement now. There's no incentive to keep it still. Dead, like non-moving capital is dead capital. So anyway, but that's I'm falling down the VC rabbit hole. But let me quickly explain these as just a kind of practical use case and an example, so that when you guys are thinking about things and gals are thinking about things, this is these are kind of good, helpful ways for you to start to process your universe and reality. So a total addressable market, a TAM, as we call it. I'm building an app for skateboarders. Like, okay, all skateboarders. Okay, all skateboarders or like American skateboarders or like, okay, but anyway, point, skateboarders. All right, how many skateboarders are there? You know, there's 7 billion people on the planet. We'll say that there's 25 million skaters. I'm just gonna pull that right out. We'll say 25 million skaters. Bam. Okay. So you got 25 million at the top. 25. Yeah. All right. Your segmented market. I'm building an app. It's localized to English. Okay. Okay. First of all, like that can work, but the folks in South America, in Brazil, in China, all those skaters, they ain't playing your game. They ain't using your app. They can't read it. They don't know what it is. Cuts them off. Okay. So that 25 now becomes like 15. So 25 at the top end. Your segmented market, 15. So you've eliminated there, okay? Now, the share of your market. How much of this 15 million people can you, I believe you, can address? Can you get to 50% of them? Can you get to half of this audience? You can get to half of this audience, okay. There's 7.5 million people in this pool now. So 25, 15, 7. Okay, now, how much did it cost you to get those users? Okay, so this is where we get into the CPA. So TAM, SAM, SOM, CPA. Cost per acquisition. So let's say I could acquire those users by running ads in skate magazines, buying ads on YouTube, doing things like going to skate shops, hiring people to go off and plaster Venice Beach with stuff, blah, blah, blah. Like, averaged out, I can acquire that user for $1 each user, we'll say. Okay, cool. So to get all 7 million users, we're going to pay $1. So theoretically, you should have $7.5 million prepared to raise to get to that entire audience. Okay, that's what you need to have is onboard capital in order to be able to reach that audience. Okay, now that we figured that out, how much money can you make from that audience? Like, can you sell stuff to them? That's what the ARP is, the average revenue per user. Okay, so if it costs you $1 and you can make $4 per user with ads, selling them stuff, magazine subscriptions, sending them emails and the newsletters, like all of these things are broken down as the little business units within your skateboarding like newsletter thing app. Okay, how many users are you losing of that 7 million year over year? So now you've got them all, but let's say you lose 10% or 15% year over year, because there's, again, new audiences dies off, folks just don't care about like your app anymore, it's old and busted, we don't give a shit. That's churn. This right here defines every like consumer business, like really, like, and breaks it down to the most basic mathematic model that someone like me can go off and say, well, I think they got the goods. I think that group of humans right there, they totally can pull this off. Because we'll give them the first 250 grand of that 7 million, and then they'll get some percentage of those users, and we'll say, yeah, those are good benchmarks. And then we'll call, as a VC, we'll call the next person saying, hey, you know, we've got a really interesting portfolio company who has managed to get to their benchmarks, and we're feeling really good, and they need another $1 million to get to their next million users. So, hey guys that I play golf with, shall we like go ahead and have you subscribe to the next part of the round? And they do. And then that next round of capital comes in, and then those guys who play like golf at fancier places than I do. I don't play golf, but those folks that play golf at the fancier places than I do, even when I would play golf, we'll call other people who will say, hey, you know, we've got a portfolio company that's really doing well. And then that happens again. Again, these are all just, that has nothing to do with feelings, has nothing to do with credibility, has nothing to do with, it has everything to do with math. That is really powerful. Like, that is really powerful because unlike the idea, unlike the sentiment, unlike any of those things, it has everything to do with the believability of this entrepreneur hitting the universe somehow and then creating enough signal to then in turn, like, make something awesome and actually return on an investment. That is a very curious thing, because I can tell you, I've done diligence on deals that I don't understand. Like, I don't get why this is popular. It seems stupid. It's illogical. Yeah, it's just like, like I've done diligence onto those things. So, yeah, one of the, let me see. They are creating revenue. Enough revenue to justify the next round of investment. They can be underwater for a period of time. Do note that Facebook was underwater for the first 6.5 years of its existence, okay? So think about it like this. At some point, you're believing that all of this is going to pay off. Like, you have some dream. This is all going to work out. I'm totally going to figure out how to take the dollar and make it 385. Like, I'm committed to doing this. But think about it in Facebook's space. Yeah, let's say you're Peter Thiel and you're writing your first like $7 million check to Facebook. That's what happens. Then later on, you're Microsoft and you're writing a $250 million check to Facebook, because that happened again in like 2010. Again, they were nowhere close to that money. Okay, they were digging a hole. Okay, and pouring capital into the hole, digging a hole. What's down there? Shit ton of gold. We're digging a hole every day, digging a hole, pouring more money in, pouring more money in, pouring more money in, pouring more money into this hole. Now, the question is, there is definitely gold down there, but are they going to be able to reach that gold with the capital they've got? Now, if you dig a well and you get only 80% of the way to the well, you have a giant deep black hole. That's all you have. If you run out of cash, you just have a deep ass hole that you will be buried in. That's it. But if you were just another 25, 30, 100 million, 200 million, 500 million away, you never, like, the numbers can get obscene. There's billions of dollars on the back end. But if you had stopped, you would have just lost 900 million. That's it. And we would have just laughed at you. Fuck, that's a mean math game. But that's how math is calculated in this game. So it's really interesting about these dreams that people have. Because, like, they are pursuing them because they are so certain. Like, abso-fucking-lutely sure. Without a doubt, sure shit and right as rain. There's definitely gold in that hole. You just have to give me enough money to keep digging, to keep getting to the bottom of this, because believe me, there's gold at the bottom. There totally is. There totally is. And it took literally an IPO where they've exhausted every bit of private capital that is actually at all provided at all. Like, you've exhausted all private capital. There is no more for you to be had in the private market. So what do? We let you out into the American consumer and international consumer and hedge funds and wealth funds and sovereign and wealth and all that stuff. Because they will then in turn, they will put in that matching money to get us to the space, and then we will make our money. And that is the Facebook story. That is a story of insane belief. They're profitable now. It took them 7 years of engineering, hundreds of millions of dollars of pouring into a process. Like, think about that. Like, can you imagine you're that last 500 million, and you're thinking, I can't believe these guys, because Microsoft wasn't right at the 250, and like Andreessen wasn't right at the 50 before that, and Thiel wasn't right at the 7 before that, and Excel Partners wasn't right at the 3.5 before that, and it takes more and more faith in the entrepreneur the further this goes. Anyway, which is a really interesting thing, because if you chase your dreams, you will always chase them. That's the point. That you must have absolute conviction. This is not a dream. There's definitely gold in the bottom of that hole. Definitely. No hesitation, no lack of not even for a freaking second. Because there are no such thing as part-time dreams. Really, I think about that quote a lot. I don't part-time anything anymore. I've never really part-timed anything, but I definitely, since being cognizant of these models, I'm understanding it's either it's mathematically correct and I believe in my math, or I don't believe in my math and I have doubt. But you have to you cut and run and you do something else if the math doesn't check out. But you shouldn't be doing things just based on feel. You should be doing things based on data. Anyway, who's this guy? This is a fun one. Yeah, buddy. That's right. Fellow Scandinavian. PewDiePie. Dude makes about $7 million a year on YouTube right now. And you're like, what? Really? Playing video games? Yeah, no kidding. This guy. So, I mean, to give you a sense of what this guy does here. Skip here. Man tab. Show you a PewDiePie video. It's terrible. It's really not very good. I'm not gonna interestingly enough, I don't care for the content. It's just loud and annoying and weird and just strange, but he's got the numbers. Okay, he's got the numbers. And to explain this, yeah, I mean, this is just one of his many multi-million view YouTube videos. This is a human being with hundreds of multi-million view YouTube videos. He's probably responsible for 260, maybe 300 million views on YouTube. That's now, yeah, okay. Again, this is math. This is math. So we'll go back. So his content, not very good. Yeah, again, I don't get it, but I don't have to. I can't argue with numbers, like, because they're facts, and we live in a fact-based reality. So let's talk about how this happened, because I think that's really important to understand. Again, you're like, how does a Swede from Gothenburg make $7 million a year on YouTube? I'll tell you, it's not because your videos are annoying, because they are. That's a fact. Success is, again, cultivated. Okay, this is a person that had some very interesting content. It was weird, it was strange, it got some low-level traction within the video game community. But there's a group in Los Angeles called Machinima Media. And Machinima, they get 1 billion views a month. So they, as a network that's like an ABC or a CBS or a, they are a network. So what they can do is they can create, or not create, they can put content into their content stream. And if it gets traction, there's success, interestingly enough. So the only thing you can do is, like, they can make a bet and say, hey, you know what? This is interesting. What if we lock this guy up and have him make 50 videos for us? And then we'll just agree on the rev share split. So we'll just write a check. We'll do that. And then in exchange for that, we'll own the content, and then we'll split the ad revenue. So at 1 billion views a month, which is what Machinima Corporate makes, at somewhere between a $3 and $7 CPM, that means they make somewhere between, they make about $40 million a year as a network. So Machinima, just a group of people who aggregate YouTube videos and have a very large amount of traction as a destination, can negotiate an ad rate on their own. Like, basically, they can command an ad rate. And because they can command this ad rate, it's important to understand that YouTube corporate, like global, like on the top end of the funnel, like if like not counting any of this, YouTube, Google gets a $4 billion check from brands, advertisers, Coke, Pepsi, Clorox, PG&E, like everything. All the things that exist on YouTube, they get a big ass check. And they go off and target the content. So then it's people who go off and build very large nets of content, and then Google keeps 45% of the ads, and the content creators keep the other 55%. And then these guys strike deals with other folks who then in turn like make content, and then it's a big ad. And this is how PewDiePie was created. So, they write someone a check for 100 grand and say, hey, I want you to make 10 videos for me. He makes 10 videos, gets his money. Then over some period of time, there's a return on that investment. And you just keep this machine going. It's important to understand that celebrity is cultivated, but it takes a huge-ass network to make that happen. It's like, it takes being on an ABC or an SVT, or it takes like that. One does not exist without the other. Like, they aren't vacuums. It's not like, well, I'm just going to go start recording videos and putting them online and I'll be popular. Well, you'll get 150 views and, like, again, your mom won't care. And yeah, sure, they'll be interesting, but it's not how celebrity is. So it's important to understand celebrity is created. It's like a bacteria. It's like, you know what? If out on your own, you get nothing. But if you're in this huge hive, well, there's cellular growth. Let's put you in a hive. Honestly, I think that they could, like, Machinima can probably make videos about knitting popular. Like, no kidding. Like the content doesn't matter. Like, I'm just gonna, like, if there were competitive Minecraft knitters, and they were like, ooh, look, it would work. Be just as popular as whatever that crap is. And yeah, and it's because there's enough coming in and enough going out and enough of a margin to make it real. So again, this is just that filter. All right. And we're getting to the point where I'll put the hat on. All right. Because this is like where those models and those math things actually kind of get really weird. Okay, because again, we're now starting to talk about how things are deconstructed. Let's talk about how things are constructed, because we can find interesting elements of this. And I'm almost done. So we're we can get out and enjoy our beer here in a bit and drink, and we'll carry on. We'll have some fun here. Now, like I said, they don't work the way that they seem, and I hope that, like, so far I've managed to illustrate a few points that explain that. But they are fun to take apart. So let's take a once kind of Swedish-ish telephone company and talk about how that has turned into some very interesting thing. So Sherman Networks were the guys and gals behind Kazaa, which was the file trading network. So the original AES 256 encrypted peer-to-peer protocol that was the underpinnings of a file trading network is also the base technology for Skype. They were the same. And also another video company called something with an F, not Hughes, something like anyway, Juiced, not F, Juiced. So Juiced and Kazaa and Skype, that's just the same thing repackaged and doing different things, which is kind of awesome. So anyway, so Sherman sells it to eBay for like $2 billion bucks, a lot of money. eBay holds on to it for a little bit. Andreessen Horowitz comes in, puts in some more money, and then they eventually sell it to Microsoft for like $8 billion. But we want to talk about what I want to talk about, Skype. Skype was interesting. It was it's probably a $2 billion company, but probably not an $8 billion company. Definitely a $2 billion company, but definitely not a 4 times $2 billion company. Because I want you guys to realize that's $8,000 million. What? Really? Do you have any idea how much phone service that would buy across all networks across the world? That's all communications that have ever, $8,000 million? It's like every human being that's ever been on a cell phone having free cell phone service for fucking ever. How is that a thing? They'll never return on that investment. It doesn't make sense. It actually doesn't. How the fuck is that real? Anyway. Pwned. Okay. Because originally, that was a 256 encrypted AES communication system. It was allowed human beings to be able to talk to each other with a highly encrypted channel and no man in the middle. So, this is why I'm wearing my hat. I don't want Microsoft and the NSA to hear. What's really interesting is that Skype is encrypted traffic from point to point, 256, from A to B. But what the truth of the matter is that, this is pretty awesome. They sold to Microsoft so that they could undo that. Undo the 256 AES encryption. You're like, wait a minute. AES is pretty hard to beat. And it is. It's in fact impossible to beat. At least, not impossible, but really hard. And not at the scale that you would need. So what do? You sell it to a company that already has a very good relationship with the NSA, namely Microsoft. Now, Microsoft is a receiver of money from the CIA's, and this is why I'm wearing my hat, because it sounds like it's crazy, but it's actually not. Guys, this is real. So there's a venture capital firm called In-Q-Tel, and In-Q-Tel invests in technology startups like Mongo. So if you store your data in Mongo, that's an interesting place to put it. That's kind of cool. Yeah. Anyway, so there's that's a thing. Just I highly recommend, if you have any technology stacks, you look to see who's invested in what it is you use, because that's a if you're going to build an entire business on something, shouldn't you do the research and try and figure out what it is you're running? I'm just curious. I'm just asking that for you guys as technology people. So if anyone here uses Cloudera Hadoop, that's another one. Just also an In-Q-Tel partner. Kind of interesting. All right. So I could do this demo now, but I don't like demos failing on stage, and we'll see how this works. But there was a period of time where I could have, and if you read this article, you'll see it too. I could have asked any of you guys here in the audience and gals in this audience to give me 5 random words. I take those 5 random words, I buy a domain name with those bullshit words and some string of numbers. Now, there has never been any traffic gone to any of those this new domain name that I've just created. No traffic at all. I hook up a web server to it, and I link it to it real time. Okay? Tail the log file on this web server. So maybe it's a very simple Python HTTP server, and I just hook it, and I just say, okay, let's see what happens the first time. Like, okay, no one's gone to it. I'm seeing it. It's live. It's been connected to an IP address, and now it's there. Now, I open up a Skype session, and I ask any of you guys for your Skype information. And then I say, okay, now watch this. We're on an AES 256 encrypted channel. I'm going to ping you this domain name. Now get this. You don't have to click, because Microsoft will do it for you. Because you'll see within seconds that you get a Bing bot. Bink! On this SSL encrypted, like, thing. Now Microsoft says this is to prevent malware from being spread on the internet. But it is kind of curious that they would actually, like, look at every URL that is ever passed through as content. It's unreal to me. Like, it's a little scary. What I'm saying is that, like, this is why a company like Skype can get an $8 billion valuation, because you pay $8 billion to get at the data, because the data is worth fuck tons more than whatever the company is worth. Again, that is reality. Because you don't want, you know, terrible humans being able to have their privacy, because, you know, bad things can happen. Anyway. So, that's kind of the end of the talk, really. I really want you all to try when you can. I'll put this off here. To try when you can to at least bother to do a little more research in the stuff that you guys are interacting with, because it's you know, there's a wealth of stuff that's just below the surface, and it's like looking at a lake and just believing that there's water there. You know, because what we see with our eyes, much like magic, is just an angle of data. So make sure that you're looking at it for at least more than one. Consider some alternates. Now look, you don't have to wear the tinfoil hats, and you don't have to do the whole conspiracy thing, but you know, it's not a secret that the CIA is created In-Q-Tel, and it's not a secret that In-Q-Tel is invested in many technology startups. That's publicly traded SEC information. That's like really low-hanging fruit. But the number of developers who are just like JavaScript, cheap and easy, Mongo, done. Just the data collection ability alone. You don't need a Snowden NSA. The NSA is already invested in the thing that you're talking about. Like there's no, like they're the guys who make it like bigger and useful to you. So anyway, it's been really fun sharing all of this information with all of you guys. I hope very much that you've enjoyed what I've shown. And if you have any questions, feel free to like pull me aside. And I'm doing a talk tomorrow about venture. I'm going to go deeper into venture capital. So if you guys are really curious about that, feel free to come back. And I'd like to thank Michael Teberg for being an amazing human being and just running just a wonderful crowd and like having just amazing folks and inviting me to be able to talk to all of you. So thank you all very much, and have a great night.